Picking up in Jasher chapter 54, verse 33, right beforehand, verse 32. And Joseph answered and said to them, Go and tell your father, an evil beast has devoured him, as you said concerning your brother Joseph. Judah spoke to his brother Naphtali, and said to him, Hurry, go now, and number all the streets of Egypt, and come and tell me. Simeon said to him, Let not this thing be a trouble to you. Now I will go to the mount, and take up one large stone from the mount, and level it at every one in Egypt, and kill all that are in it. Joseph heard all these words that his brothers spoke before him, and they did not know that Joseph understood them, for they imagined that he knew not to speak Hebrew. And Joseph was greatly afraid at the words of his brother, that they should destroy Egypt, and he commanded his son Manasseh, saying, Go now, hurry, and gather to me all the inhabitants of Egypt, and all the valiant men together, and let them come to me now on horseback and on foot, with all sorts of musical instruments. And Manasseh went and did so. Naphtali went as Judah had commanded him, for Naphtali was light-footed as one of the swift stags, and he could walk on the ears of corn, and they would not break under him. I'm just wondering if this is a battle of Gog and Magog after the 1,000-year reign or not. Anyway, verse 37, He went and numbered all the streets of Egypt and found them to be 12, and he came quickly and told Judah, and Judah said to his brothers, Hurry, and put on every man his sword on his loins, and we will come over Egypt and strike them all, and let not a remnant remain. This is just reminding me of what happens when the New Jerusalem comes down, and after the 1,000-year reign everyone wants to come against it, and then here they're coming against Egypt as one city. Anyway, verse 38, Judah said, Behold, I will destroy thee of the streets with my strength, and you shall each destroy one street. When Judah was speaking this thing, then the inhabitants of Egypt and all the mighty men came toward them, with all sorts of musical instruments and with loud shouting. And their number was 500 cavalry, and 10,000 infantry, and 400 men who could fight without sword or spear, only with their hands and strength. And mighty men was also used for people like Nimrod, the Nephilim, and stuff like that. Not exactly people, but Nephilim. Anyway, it's not always Nephilim, but just wanted to point that out. Verse 40, And all the mighty men came with great storming and shouting, and they all surrounded the sons of Jacob, and terrified them, and the ground quaked at the sound of their shouting. When the sons of Jacob saw these troops, they were greatly afraid of their lives, and Joseph did so in order to terrify the sons of Jacob to become tranquilized. Judah, seeing some of his brothers terrified, said to them, Why are you afraid while the grace of God is with us? Judah saw all the people of Egypt surrounding them at the command of Joseph to terrify them. Only Joseph commanded them, saying, Do not touch any of them. And then Judah hurried and drew his sword and uttered a loud and bitter scream. And he struck with his sword, and he stomped on the ground, and he still continued to shout against all the people. When he did this thing, the Lord caused the terror of Judah and his brothers to fall on the valiant men and all the people that surrounded them. They all fled at the sound of the shouting, and they were terrified and fell one on the other, and many of them died as they fell. And they all fled from before Judah and his brothers, and from before Joseph. While they were fleeing, Judah and his brothers pursued them to the house of Pharaoh, and they all escaped. Judah again sat before Joseph, and roared at him like a lion, and gave a great and tremendous shriek at him. The shriek was heard at a distance, and all the inhabitants of Succoth heard it, and all Egypt quaked at the sound of the shriek. Also the walls of Egypt and of the land of Goshen fell in from the shaking of the earth. And Pharaoh also fell from his throne on the ground. Also all the pregnant women of Egypt and Goshen miscarried when they heard the noise of the shaking, for they were terribly afraid. It's a lot of death. Verse 48, And Pharaoh sent word, saying, What is this thing that has this day happened in the land of Egypt? They came and told him all the things from beginning to end, and Pharaoh was alarmed, and he wondered, and was greatly afraid. His fright increased when he heard all these things, and he sent to Joseph, saying, You have brought to me the Hebrews to destroy all Egypt. What will you do with that thievish slave? Send him away, and let him go with his brothers, and let us not perish through their evil, even we, you, and all Egypt. And if you desire not to do this thing, cast off from you all my valuable things, and go with them to their land. If you delightest in it, for they will this day destroy my whole country, and kill all my people. Even all the women of Egypt have miscarried through their scream. See what they have done merely by their shouting and speaking? And if they fight with the sword, they will destroy the land. Now therefore choose that which you desire, whether me or the Hebrews, whether Egypt or the land of the Hebrews. They came and told Joseph all the words of Pharaoh that he had said concerning him, and Joseph was greatly afraid at the words of Pharaoh. And Judah and his brothers were still standing before Joseph, indignant and enraged. And all the sons of Jacob roared at Joseph like the roaring of the sea and its waves. Joseph was greatly afraid of his brothers and on account of Pharaoh. And Joseph sought a way to make himself known to his brothers, that they should not destroy all Egypt. Joseph commanded his son Manasseh, and Manasseh went and approached Judah, and placed his hand on his shoulder, and the anger of Judah was stilled. And Judah said to his brothers, Let no one of you say that this is the act of an Egyptian youth, for this is the work of my father's house. Joseph, seeing and knowing that Judah's anger was stilled, he approached to speak to Judah in the language of mildness. And Joseph said to Judah, Certainly you speak truth, and have this day verified your assertions concerning your strength, and may your God, who delights in you, increase your welfare. But tell me truly, why from among all your brothers do you argue with me on account of the lad, as none of them has spoken one word to me concerning him? I think that this is representative of the Jews who finally are coming back to Yahweh and doing his commandments and seeking him above all. And when they do that in the time of Jacob's trouble, maybe at that point they might not have accepted Jesus, Yahushua, as their Savior yet. It hasn't been made known to them. But they are doing the commandments and turning their faces towards Yahweh again and seeking him with all their will and doing God's will again. And when they do that, you see here that Judah has God's power behind him, and he's causing damage. And when Joseph, who could be a figure of Jesus, Yahushua, is afraid, I wouldn't say that Jesus is going to be afraid, but he knows that Yahweh is more powerful than him, and he wants to make himself known so that there is no more fighting anymore. He has seen at that point that they have regretted selling him, because now they won't sell their other brother, Benjamin. And once we see that they won't sell their younger brother Benjamin for the glass of Joseph's, then God is with them and backing them. And that is when Joseph wants to make himself known to them. So that is when Yahushua will be made known to them, once they have turned back towards Yahweh and gone in his ways and done his commandments. Verse 57, And Judah answered Joseph, saying, Certainly you must know that I was security for the lad to his father, saying, If I brought him not to him, I should bear his blame forever. So I have approached you from among all my brothers, for I saw that you were unwilling to allow him to go from you. Now therefore may I find grace in your sight, that you shall send him to go with us, and then I will remain as a substitute for him, to serve you in whatever you desire, for wherever you shall send me, I will go to serve you with great energy. Send me now to a mighty king who has rebelled against you, and you shall know what I will do to him and to his land. Although he may have cavalry and infantry, or an exceeding mighty people, I will kill them all and bring the king's head before you. See, this is showing that the Jews are turning their minds, and they have regretted what they have done. They have turned their eyes back to Yahweh, and they are willing to bow down to the king, even though they don't know who the king is at this point. Verse 60, Do you not know, or have you not heard, that our father Abraham with his servant Eliezer struck all the kings or Elam with their hosts in one night? They left not one remaining. And ever since that day our father's strength was given to us for an inheritance, for us and our descendants forever. Joseph answered and said, You speak truth. and falsehood is not in your mouth. For it was also told to us that the Hebrews have power, and that the Lord their God delights much in them, and who then can stand before them? However, on this condition will I send your brother, if you will bring before me his brother, the son of his mother, of whom you said that he had gone from you down to Egypt. It shall come to pass, when you bring to me his brother, I will take him in his stead, because not one of you was security for him to your father. When he shall come to me, I will then send with you his brother, for whom you have been security. And Judah's anger was set ablaze against Joseph when he spoke this thing, and his eyes dropped blood with anger. And he said to his brothers, How does this man this day seek his own destruction, and that of all Egypt? And Simeon answered Joseph, saying, Did we not tell you at first that we knew not the particular spot to which he went, and whither he be dead or alive? And why does my Lord speak these things? Joseph, observing the countenance of Judah, discerned that his anger began to kindle when he spoke to him, saying, Bring to me your other brother instead of this brother. And Joseph said to his brothers, Certainly you said that your brother was either dead or lost. Now if I should call him this day, and he should come before you, would you give him to me instead of his brother? And Joseph began to speak and call out, Joseph, Joseph, come this day before me, and appear to your brothers, and sit before them. When Joseph spoke this thing before them, they looked each a different way to see from where Joseph would come before them. And Joseph observed all their acts, and said to them, Why do you look here and there? I am Joseph, whom you sold to Egypt. Now therefore let it not grieve you that you sold me, for as a support during the famine did God send me from you. So again, when the Jews killed Jesus, there was a reason. The reason was so that Jesus could save us, the Gentiles, and everyone else on the earth. Verse 70, And his brothers were terrified at him when they heard the words of Joseph, and Judah was greatly terrified at him. When Benjamin heard the words of Joseph, he was before them in the inner part of the house, and Benjamin ran to Joseph his brother, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and they wept. When Joseph's brothers saw that Benjamin had fallen on his brother's neck and wept with him, they also fell on Joseph and embraced him, and they wept a great weeping with Joseph. I'm going to link below to a video on Zechariah 12:10 because it was mistranslated, but I will read what it should have said. Zechariah 12:10, I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, so that they will look on him whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over him like the bitter weeping over a firstborn. This is about the Jewish people weeping over Jesus once they realize that they pierced him. And in the same way you see them weeping over Joseph once they realize that it was him. I'm going to pick up on this in the next video. Thanks for listening.